Anybody ever seen the movie The Perfect Host? It stars David Hyde Pierce and Clayne Crawford. And if you haven't heard of this, oh my God, this movie is bonkers. And David Hyde Pierce is he is a huge standout in this movie. I think typically anybody would know him as from the show Frasier. He played Niles Crane, and he was kind of snobbish and highly educated. This movie almost shows a little bit of those characteristics, but he's a psycho. Let me get to it. Okay, the movie starts out with John. He's a bank robber. He had just robbed a bank. He's running away from the scene. And the news outlets had already caught him. They already have a description of him. So he's kind of panicking. So at this point, he also injures his foot really, really bad. He can't even stand on it. So he's just on foot, trying to hide somewhere. The movie just starts out that way. And later you find out that the bank that he robbed, his girlfriend works at, and they were kind of in cahoots about this bank robbery, but I'll get to that point. Well, anyway, he's going house to house. He's being very observant, trying to see where he could hide. He does notice a house. He kind of snoops into the mailbox to kind of get some information. So he's planning on knocking at a person's house and just pretending to know something about them to get his way in so he could hide. So he opens this mailbox that belongs to Warwick Wilson, played by David Hyde Pierce. He sees a postcard, and it's from Sydney, Australia, and it shows a whole letter of a vacation or whatever from a girl named Julia. So he's I'm going to use this information to get my way in. So he goes up to the door, answers Warwick, David Hyde Pierce. And he's a very mild-mannered, very, easygoing. He notices that his foot, he notices that, he's kind of limping. He's oh no, can I help you? And he does give a story. John gives kind of a bullcrap story about hey, I need to use your phone. Can I come in? I'm a friend of Julia's. And so Warwick's just oh, you know Julia? And well, come on in. And so as they're sitting there, he's pretending to use the phone, Warwick is asking him questions about Julia, about Sydney, trying to get his backstory. And of course, John's seemingly one step ahead. He's answering questions. He's kind of, coming up with things out of his ass, just to stall and hide from the police that have been looking for him all over the city. Meanwhile, speaking of police, there is a detective who catches wind of the bank robbery, and all through the movie it shows the detective kind of trying to trace John and do all that, right? Okay, so back to David I. Pierce and Clayne Crawford. They're in the house, and so finally, after all these questions, John gets really irritated, and he's look, actually, he ends up, David I. Pierce hears the news and ends up knowing who he is. So then John turns on him. He's look, you're going to do what I say. Shit's going to go my way, and, do as I say, and you're not going to get hurt. And so Warwick's just well, I'm having a dinner party tonight. So I'll do anything, And so John's just well, good, So he's just sitting there. And so he's preparing dinner, getting things ready. He hands him a glass of wine and has him drink it because he's just I'm expecting people over, any minute, and, just please don't hurt me, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, John gets kind of woozy because they're still talking and asking questions, and then Warwick starts to, his personality starts to shift. And his tone starts to shift. Well, anyway, as John's getting dizzy and woozy, he falls to the floor and notices just oh my God, he feels drugged. Well, anyway, turns out Warwick drugged him and he's been like one step ahead of him the whole time. And from there, he like passes out. From there, things just go off the rails, okay? John wakes up. He's tied to a chair, and it shows like four other people sitting at the dinner table, and Warwick is at the other end of the table. Warwick is talking to his guests like, "Oh, hey, I've seen that movie a couple times. I hope it comes out on DVD, or when it comes out on DVD." But he's having like conversations, general dinner conversations about different things. Well, anyway, John's like looking around like, what the hell's happening? These are all imaginary. These are all in Warwick's head. His dinner guests, they don't exist. He's having full-on conversations with real plates of food, like around the dinner table. And then he gets up and starts to eat off the plates of like his dinner guests and stuff. And the way he eats the food too is like madness. Like he's clearly a psycho, and he's playing this part so well. John's just like, oh my God, like what? Because Warwick is asking questions, or in his mind, these guests are asking John questions. And so Warwick's looking at him like, are you going to answer Chelsea? He doesn't say that, but he's, looking at him like, and John's just like in disbelief, like, what? And, he's just like, he answers for John to his imaginary, like, guests. Anyways, like, things go off the rails even more so. Because, John, he gets, like, some little device to eventually try to, like, cut himself loose from, the ropes while Warwick was, like, busy or something. Well, anyway, he, like, falls over in the chair. And then, like, Warwick goes over to him. He's like, oh, no, I'm sorry. He, like, it seems like he knocks over one of, like, the imaginary guests. And so Warwick's just like, oh, my God, are you okay? He's helping his guest up. And in John's eyes, he's, like, helping an invisible person up to the chair. It's stuff like that happens throughout this whole night. He's, because his dinner party turns into like a house party. All of a sudden, there's like hundreds of people at his house. And he's having conversations and working the room, carrying drinks in his hands. And he's having a good ass time, like with nobody. And John is continuing to be like, throughout the night also, he's been drugging him, giving him wine, slapping him, knocking him out, like just torturing this guy. And then throughout the movie also, he takes pictures of him through like different states of his decline. And he leads him to believe that he does this all the time. But then later we find out that this is just all a huge ruse. Like, this is just a game he plays. He doesn't like kill anybody, even though John thinks that he's such a psycho that he has done this before with multiple victims, I mean, he's definitely a victim, but like, we find out later that it's just like, he just does all this crazy stuff, all for nothing. It just for his psychotic entertainment. He's having this house party, he's having a conga line, like all these people, like in his mind, it shows like hundreds of people. But of course with John, he's just like dancing all by himself, like all around the pool and stuff. And even at one moment, he tries to ask one of his like imaginary guests to help move John over to like the pool, because like also in and out throughout the movie, this nosy neighbor keeps looking over into the house, like what is going on over there. So John starts screaming, and at one point she goes over to the house. He puts a costume on John and like gags him and stuff too, so he can't speak, and like like hides him away by the pool or whatever. So the neighbor's just like, hey, is everything okay? And he's just like, oh, everything's fine. He's just drunk, it's fine. He'll be fine by the morning. Thanks for checking up on me. And so the neighbor's just like, okay. And so she leaves. And like, finally it gets to a point where John has to think on his feet. He's like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta like outsmart this guy. So, like a game of chess. There's like a flashback with him and his girlfriend, and also again by his girlfriend, by the way, who helped him with this bank robber. She's also throughout the movie showing flashbacks that she's in a lot of pain, and part of the reason why he robbed the bank is to help pay for her surgeries. So that's kind of plays a factor in why all this happened. Anyway, after this little game of chess or whatever, that was the deal for him to be let go. And so he wins. And so Warwick's just like, you cheated, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, I didn't. You said you'd let me go. Anyway, after like a big scuffle, eventually, cut to the next morning. He wakes up like at the curb where like the garbage is. He just tossed him out, And he also put like a fake like slit, like of makeup, because he took pictures of him throughout the night. So maybe to show his future victim, this is what I did with the last guy. Like he put like makeup on him, And he's like, what the hell? He's just trying to get over that. He escapes, He's trying to find his girlfriend at that point, who had the money. And then it turns out she was trying to double cross him, because later he catches up to her and finds out like that she wasn't even sick. Like she just wanted him to rob the bank and she was going to take off with the money. And he was like, hell no. So he takes the money from her and like drives off in the parking garage. Oh my God. Also, turns out Warwick he's a detective. Like he's like the head of the police department, because the other detective that was like trying to track down John in this robbery and stuff the whole time, he like works for him, and he visited his house the next morning. Like psychotic, because he was also asking Warwick like, hey, did you bump into this guy John? Because yeah, there's actually a picture that he took of both of them, and he's like, can you explain this picture? And Warwick's just like, I mean, that was probably photoshopped. Like, this happens all the time. Like, don't believe anything you see. Anyway, cuts back to the parking garage. He is almost gone, but he's stopped by Warwick, and he's trying to blackmail him. He's like, you better give me some money, or give me the money, and then I'll let you go. And I think he was planning on like escaping to Mexico or something. So he does give him the money, but then Warwick gives him a few thousand to like live off of, just to be nice, And John's just like, okay, oh my God, you're a psycho. So he is successful in his escape, whatever. Well, anyway, a few weeks later, that's why the detective came back to see Warwick, is because John mailed him a Polaroid of them two together. That's what happened. Yeah, mailed him the Polaroid of them two together, and then that's when he accused the detective Morton accused Warwick of knowing him. And he's just like, this is probably Photoshop. Like, I don't have time for this. Like, he's being, just dismissing it, just like, whatever, this is ridiculous. So anyway, very end of the movie, he's on his way out, and Warwick, who asked John early in the movie if he liked red or white wine, and he asked for red wine, and of course that's when all this craziness happened. He asked Detective Morton, like, hey, come to my house, let's have like a dinner, and then he asked him, do you like red or white wine? And he's like, red. And he's like, I thought so. And so very end, it shows him walking out of the police department just with all the confidence in the world. And then it shows like the 4 dinner party like people, like apparently these people are just always with him at all times, because like they never really leave his side. They're always just there, like all around him, and they're all like walking out together, and it's just like, it just ends that way. This movie, like, I loved it so much solely for David Hyde Pierce. Like, I just thought this was the best thing he had ever done, even though it's not a very well-known movie. I feel like I watch a lot of movies that no one else hears about, but I want to know if you've ever heard it, seen it, if you liked it, if you didn't. Tell me why. Let's have a discussion. Leave a comment below.